The mighty Mycenaeans now master the northeastern corner of the Mediterranean, with areas such as the Peloponnese, the Attic Peninsula, the Cyclades Islands, parts of the Anatolian mainland, and also the Dodecanese Islands, as well as Crete itself under their control. This civilization is now the undisputed master of the Aegean Sea and even holds a key cornerstone place in the trade routes of the wider region, bringing them into closer contact with nearby civilizations such as the Hittites, Egypt, and even Mesopotamia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you lads and ladies around the world, and welcome back to Bronze Age Greece, where a now dominant Mycenaean civilization has taken its place as the undisputed master of the Aegean Sea, with enough power, authority, wealth, and military might to even go toe-to-toe with one of the dominant powers in the Eastern Mediterranean, that being the Hittite Empire. But as discussed in the previous episode, the Hittites and the Mycenaeans, although going toe-to-toe and beating each other up every now and then, were not constant enemies. In fact, they were both two important cogs in the trade networks of the region, which saw Mycenaean goods leave the Aegean shores and go even as far as the palaces of the pharaohs of Egypt themselves. This can be further supported by the presence of images within the tombs of Egyptian envoys of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, depicting Mycenaean diplomats present within the court of the pharaoh. However, this was not the only area of the Eastern Mediterranean to play host to Mycenaean diplomats and envoys, with Mycenaean-style frescoes and their artistic influence even finding its way to the furthest shores of the Eastern Mediterranean, with examples of Mycenaean art being found in the regions known as Syria and Palestine, which served as entrances to an even wider trade network that would one day stretch from these shores all the way to China itself. For now though, these trade routes led to wealthier cities within Mesopotamia, such as Ur, Uruk, Lagash, and Babylon. This then would appear to imply that the influence of Mycenaean culture was fairly widespread for a civilization at this time, and this far reach of one culture into others geographically very distant from each other can be seen in the modern world today, and you don't have to look very far. For instance, if you go into your kitchen, you probably have several takeaway menus from countries and cuisines half a world away from you geographically. But a key difference between our time and that of the Mycenaeans is that that food will be at your front door within about half an hour. Great. And now I'm hungry. But concerns of the mind and the stomach aside, this merely serves to only emphasize just how important trade routes, networks and links were to this flourishing cultural area of the world that was perhaps as intricately interconnected as our world is today, but on a much smaller scale, confined to only the Eastern Mediterranean and parts of what we know as the Middle East today. For not only were people and ideas transferred between the powers of the Late Bronze Age in this way, but also facilitated the movement of goods across a larger area. Crucially, those two metals forming the wonder alloy known as bronze, from which this era gets its namesake due to its widespread use and cruciality in the day-to-day functioning of these early civilizations. But despite its reliance on bronze, like many other powers in the region, the chief export of the Mycenaeans, perhaps similar to that of the Minoans and even the Cyclades even further back, was that of wine and olive oil, which owe their mass exportation in ancient times to a fact that is still true today, in that the land we now call Greece, there lie many acres of fertile farmland, of which have been renowned for the last 3,000 years of their prowess in producing perhaps some of the world's finest olives and wine. And on top of this, the Mycenaeans also exported scented oils, which may have been used in temples across the Late Bronze Age world of this region, perhaps being burned in place of incense. in order to appease various gods, perhaps even in the temples of Egypt, such as at Karnak. But who did the Mycenaeans worship? And how did they worship their gods? Well, this may come as a little bit of a surprise, but the deciphering of Mycenaean tablets points to the strong possibility that the Mycenaeans were perhaps the first in this area to worship the gods commonly associated with the classical Greek pantheon, those being the likes of Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Athena, Ares, Demeter, Dionysus, Hermes, Artemis, and Apollo. And similar to their classical Greek counterparts, the Mycenaeans placed their religious sites within their towns and cities. But what sets the Mycenaeans apart from classical Greeks that would come after them is that religious shrines were often placed within or close to the central palace of a Mycenaean citadel, perhaps in an attempt to convince the subjects of a Wanax that the Wanax was closely associated with the almighty gods themselves and therefore not to be rebelled against or trifled with in any way. But this is perhaps as close as the association between royalty and godhood would get for the Mycenaeans. For unlike their Egyptian and Mesopotamian counterparts, the Wanax of a Mycenaean kingdom was not considered to be a god in the mortal realm. However, they were considered perhaps like the kingdoms of medieval Europe that would come much, much later to have gained their power and authority from the gods themselves, whom they would often thank and placate by way of the holding of processions, dances, singing, and also the reward of private land to priests and priestesses, all in an effort to appease the gods, who were in this ancient religion said to be omnipresent everywhere around the Mycenaeans. And the unpredictability of the world around the Mycenaeans was written into the religion and the gods themselves, who as a result required this constant placation, which even included ritual sacrifices of animals in outdoor shrines and altars. But speaking of the unpredictability of the world around the Mycenaean civilization, it seems not even the gods themselves could protect the Mycenaeans from what was about to hit them next. For around the year 1200 BCE, the winds of change would begin to blow not just for the Mycenaean kingdoms but for the entirety of this region. Which shortly brings us to another aspect of what gave the Mycenaeans their success, for they not only participated in peaceful trade missions with other powers, but from time to time they were known to conduct small amounts of piracy in order to acquire valuable resources such as gold, gemstones, and perhaps even copper and tin in order to bolster the supplies of their weapons of war, which included spears, slings, and chariot warfare. And for what was about to come next, the Mycenaeans would surely need this, but unfortunately it would not be enough. And yes, I am skimming over the details here, because the Mycenaeans would perhaps be the first of many dominoes to fall across this part of the world over the course of roughly a few decades. First it would start with the Mycenaeans. Gone. The Hittites. Gone. The various city-states of Palestine and Syria. Gone. For several unknown factors would turn the Mycenaeans' use of piracy against them in the form of mysterious peoples appearing seemingly from the depths of the sea itself. And these peoples have been unceremoniously titled by modern scholars the Sea Peoples, a collective of several different cultures and political groups with an unknown origin that is still the topic of fierce debate to this day. And whilst it may first appear on the surface that, oh, these are just pirates, the Mycenaeans with a complex system as that and that much military prowess can surely kick the arse of a few pirates. But it turned out not this time, for the Mycenaeans in all their complexity would not be able to withstand this challenge, for by around the year 1100 BCE, all of the Mycenaean kingdoms would be wiped from the face of the earth, reduced to nothing more than rubble and ash, never to be rebuilt or reoccupied again. So join us next time as we delve into a couple more of the civilizations that the Mycenaeans interacted with, such as the Hittites, and also as we return to Mesopotamia to discuss the long history from the fall of the Akkadian Empire all the way up until the rise of the Assyrian Empire, and eventually how we will discuss in detail how the dominoes would fall and the Bronze Age would come to a catastrophic end. I'm Lewis of the Grand Portfolio, and thank you for watching.